Hi, Andy Barton. I'm the new city manager for the city of Mesquite. Started here on May 7th. Moved here from Newcastle, Colorado. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm pleased to be here this afternoon to address you folks. One of the important things about being in my position, I think, is not staying in City Hall, getting out into the community, and finding out what people think. And that's why I'm here today. I wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on at City Hall, but I also wanted to entertain your questions, address any concerns you have, and if you have questions that I can't answer here, I will get back to you and we'll answer. So, a little bit of background. Aaron, can you hear me? Good. Okay. A little bit of background.
We can't hear you back there.
Let's get all close.
Hi folks, can you hear me in the back row? Can you folks in the back row hear me?
You just have to really keep it up close.
The folks in the back of the room, can you hear me? Okay. Could you raise your hands if you can hear me? Great, thank you, appreciate it. Okay. Just a little bit of information about the city. We have a city workforce of 142 full-time employees. We have an operating budget of $18.9 million. And we're going into our next fiscal year. The city is on a fiscal year that begins on July 1st and goes through June 30th. So we're just at the end of the 2011-12 fiscal year, and we're just beginning the fiscal year for 2012 and 2013. We do have a balanced general fund budget, which is great. There are cities in this state and many cities in many other states that aren't fortunate enough to have a balanced budget. But we do have our challenges. The challenges that we have primarily are challenges related to the economy. We have had to lay off 31 employees in the last 2 years. That has made it very, very difficult for us to be able to provide services at the same level. Nonetheless, you have a dedicated staff and they're trying their best to be able to provide the same level of services that you've received in the past. It hasn't been easy, but that is our main challenge. Financially, the city is in good shape. We have a reserve fund that's about 30% of our regular budget. The state of Nevada requires considerably less than that, so we're fortunate to be in that shape, but we're by no means in great shape financially because of the community. We do have our challenges. I know that some of the challenges are felt by people in this room because we are cutting back on the hours here. We had to find a way of cutting the budget by $2 million. We had a $2 million deficit going into the budget cycle. Staff did everything they could to cut the budget. We reduced it by about 10%, and consequently, there are some cuts, and there will be some cuts here as well. While I'm talking to you, let me take the opportunity to present some of our staff. Joy Eastwood is my assistant. She's right here. Joy, want to stand up? Okay, she's my right hand. Okay. Brian Dangerfield is in back of me. He is the Director of Leisure Services. Everything that happens in this building, he is ultimately responsible for. Reseda, I'm not sure where.
She's in the back room.
Okay, Reseda's not in the room. Okay. Chrissy's not here either?
They're back working.
Okay, sorry. Well, I guess some of the other staff people I can't introduce. In any event, enough of me talking. I'm really here to listen. So if you have any questions for me or for my staff, please ask them. Yes, sir. I'll repeat the question for everybody's benefit.
Watch this corner up here. You got this empty buildings up and down the main drag. Harley's, the restaurant over here. They've been vacant for years. Outside of the motel. All that promises was going to get fixed years ago. It's redevelopment. Money was supposed to come to the town and everything. But they never took care of it. They never been taken care of. All the way down the boulevard, you got these empty buildings.
Okay, the question was what's happening in the downtown? Why did not redevelopment funds take care of some of the areas that are in less than great shape? Probably the best answer to that right now is that the places that are in private ownership still, we really don't have, there's not much we can do for them. And the other restrictions have to do with finances. We just really don't have the money to go into at this point. Probably Aaron Baker, who is our economic development director, could be in a better position to address the question about redevelopment in the downtown, where those funds have gone and where they're going.
I mean, these empty, like the old empty restaurant up there, kitty corner for Maverick, Harley's, these empty buildings, you know, even the sign over there at the motel, the pool's been empty for 10 years. This doesn't look well.
Okay, his question is regarding some of the properties in the downtown area that are older and are dilapidated, and what's being done in regards to those properties. The majority of those properties are private properties that are held by a private property owner. We do reach out to them and say, if you're interested, depending on the parcel, it may be in the redevelopment district and they may have redevelopment funds available to them. Some of them are not. However, the city is hesitant to force someone's hand to do something unless it becomes a life safety issue. If it's unsightly, if they choose to clean it up, great. If they don't, some of those are just hard to force. So we are working with property owners, and some of those properties you have mentioned, I personally have been in contact with, and we are trying to work on some things. It's a process though, because it takes money on their end as well. So,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
In the context of that same question, three plus years ago, the city development was called the T Boulevard Corridor Plan. And one of my questions today was, where is that? What's happening with it?
The question is, what happened to the Mesquite Boulevard corridor plan? And again, I'll have to rely on staff because I don't have that knowledge.
the corridor plan was brought before the city council. It was not approved by the city council, so it's not an official document by which we can govern or implement. We can only use it as a guide at this point because it was not adopted by the city council.
Are you using it as a guide?
Yes. Implementation takes money, so. And willing parties.
Other questions? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Why does the fishing pond on April Boulevard over here look like a cesspool? Smart fish would never ever go in there. It looks that way every day. It looks worse. Green water is not acceptable. Even the fish don't like it. I think that the city ought to do something to either clean it up or close it off.
The question is the state of the fishing pond on Haven Boulevard. Brian Dangerfield is going to answer that.
Hopefully you can hear me back there. The question about the Haven Fishing Pond, we presently have an RFQ out for a company to come in and not only build a splash pad in that area, but also deal with the pumping station there at the pond and irrigating the rest of the park and keeping that pond fresh. We understand your concerns, and that project will help alleviate that, much of what you're talking about.
Well, our landscapers are cutting the grass around the pond, and they take the blower, they blow all the grass clippings into the pond. That doesn't help either.
I'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay, my question is, the properties that are unkept, like vacant or otherwise, why aren't they a source of revenue for the city? You clean up the properties using the labor to pay everybody, plus the fine that the property owner pays for the messy, unkept, cluttered, vacant lot is nets a profit for the city. Isn't that so?
Your question, if I understand your question correctly, is in regards to enforcement of property, keeping it clean. And the city council historically has been very hesitant to direct staff to use the police power to go onto someone's property, clean it up, and then lien the property for that.
It's already on the books, isn't it?
What do you mean? I apologize. I don't understand.
The city rule, or what do you call it, law, is already on the books that a property owner needs to keep up their appearance.
Correct, and we traditionally work through the code enforcement process to do that, where it's a compliance process rather than a city staff go do that or hire a private company to go do that. We are in the process of hiring a code enforcement person. We have not had one for a while due to, cutbacks. We just haven't had the funding for it. So
Code enforcement, these people will be happy to tell you where you need to go.
it's not so much a question of where it is. I mean, I can see it and you can see it. I don't think that's the issue. It's the working with the individual property owners to bring them into compliance. It's a process. And you have to go through due diligence process.
Yes, and there's also the matter of resources as well. It's a matter of whether or not the city has the resources and the time to devote to those issues. With 142 full-time employees, we're stretched pretty thin at this point. Most cities that have a zoning code enforcement officer, they enforce by exception. Unless it's a life safety issue, it's enforced by exception. So we do it by complaint as opposed to going out into the neighborhood and looking for violations. We act when those violations are mentioned to us, and we have to go forward with that. Anybody else? Question, please. Yes, ma'am.
A year ago, we were told that City Hall was closed on Friday to save money on utilities, and perhaps that's not the only reason or the exact reason that that change was made. So it's a year now. They said they were going to evaluate it at the end of the year. Can you give us an update on City Hall being closed on Fridays?
Those of you who didn't hear the question was, a year or so ago, City Hall closed on Fridays, started closing on Fridays. And I believe the reason given at that time had to do with energy efficiency, energy savings. As it's turned out, there has been a savings in the amount of energy generated, but there has been no cost savings associated with it. A more compelling reason for closure has to do with our contract with our union. Employees, from what I understand, decided to take a pay cut and work a 38-hour week, and that really is primarily the reason that City Hall is closed. It's unlikely that it will open on Friday before next year. It would have to be an item that would be negotiated with the union. I can tell you that there's a lot of sentiment in the community. There's a lot of sentiment in the City Council as well for some sort of a presence on Friday. But probably for the next 6 months, City Hall will continue to be closed on Fridays.